So we have our list view, but nothing happens when we tap a property that we want to see the details of. So let's fix that. Remember that our simple row has an onSelected event, and we're saying we want you to push a detail page component, and you also have to give that page component the model, which is the item.model. And that item model comes from this list of sources. So there's quite a few missing steps if you think about it, but that's the beauty of a list page. It does all of the magic voodoo between these things for us. So we don't need to specify every time where we are in an array, because traversing an array can get annoying, and if it's a very large array, it can get very expensive computationally. So the guys who've made this have abstracted all of that away for us. And that's something you'll find in most mobile app ecosystems. Right, so we clearly need a detail page. Right-click Pages, Add New, ViewPlay Apps Page. And what we should call this? Well, listing detail page, I think we'll cover it. Go ahead and finish that. Now this needs that model property. Property var model, which at the outset is nothing, because we're going to pass that in. It's going to require a title, the page that is, with our usual translation services. We could call this property details. What else do we need? Well, we need to know if this is a favorite property. So let's have a read-only property, which is a Boolean. We will call it isFavorite. And the value, forgive my messy formatting here, isFavorite, the value is coming from data model dot isFavorite, and we pass in the model that we have here. I can't remember if we created that yet, but we will in due course when we get onto creating the whole favorites thing. Okay, so what else do we need? Well, we have a bar again. This is a new page, so we can recreate that right bar item. And this will let our user know if this is a favorite or not, and also they can tap it to add to favorites. So what's the icon? Well, first we need to know if this is a favorite. And we're going to query that. And if it is a favorite, then it's icon type dot heart. And if it isn't a favorite, icon type dot heart, whoops, not hera, heart O. And I can't remember what O stands for, but basically it's an empty heart, I think. Well, we'll see in a second, won't we? And then we have onClicked. What happens when we click this button? Well, we want to go over to our logic section, and there we're going to toggle favorite. Now, if you recall, I think it was last module when I was discussing logic data model page, this is a good example of it. So in order to change something in the model, we don't just go to the model. We don't just go to data model and say, hey, change it there. What we do is the page loops round to logic. Logic sends out a signal saying, I need this to happen. And then data model picks up that signal. So there's a little gotcha there that you've got to watch out for when it comes to constructing these things. Okay, what else do we need? We need a property called clip. And clip will be set to true so that the content behind the nav bar will clip, i.e. it'll disappear. Okay, so now we can actually start showing some stuff inside of here. What are we going to show it in? Well, we're going to show it in what's called a flickable. And what is a flickable, I hear you say? Well, luckily, I've pulled up a web page to show you app flickable. This is basically what a flickable is. It allows you to scroll through stuff. It's basically a scrolling view, if you like. Okay, so that's all it is. In fact, its ID we will give as scroll, so we know what it, not scroll indicator, just scroll. Okay, and then we need to position it, of course, so anchors dot fill, just fill the parent. What is the content width? So how wide is the stuff inside it? So this could expand horizontally outside of the screen in theory, but that's very, very bad design. And we wouldn't want to do that unless you were making, like, for example, a map of some sort. Then you would want to scroll outside. How big do we need, or how high do we need it? Well, this is going to come from the column of all of the stuff that we're going to create, i.e. the column of data, the app text and what have you, plus a bit of padding. Okay, so we haven't made a content column yet, but we will. We're going to find its height, and then we're going to add on, remember that content padding that we created a while ago in one of the other items? Well, we're just going to add that on to have a consistent padding. And we're going to have a bottom margin, which again will be the content padding. Now let's make that column I was talking about. Let's give it an appropriate ID that we've already specified, content col. Let's give it a Y position, content padding. What else do we need? Well, it needs to be positioned left, so let's have anchors dot left as parent dot left. Sorry, this is kind of repetitive. We want to position it right, anchors dot right. You might have guessed parent dot right, anchors dot margins, give it a bit of breathing room as content padding, that most useful property. And then some spacing between the elements. Content padding, yet again, with a capital P or it won't work. Okay, so that's the beginning of the column. We've defined some parameters for it. Now let's drop some text into that column, app text. What's the text going to be? Well, this will be the price, because everyone needs to know the price. How wide will this text be? Parent dot width. What else do we need? We need to have a wrap mode, so how the text responds to the width and the size, which is text dot wrap at boundary or anywhere. And then a pixel size, font dot pixel size. We will have this as 24. Quite large because, again, the price is important. Okay, what else do we need? We need a title. So let's copy this whole app text, paste it below. The text in this case will be model.title. We want width, wrap at boundary. Let's have this slightly smaller at SP20. Now let's have an image. And let's have the full image. So this is app image. We need to pass it over a source, right? Now this is really, really good. I'm just going to go model.image_URL, which is the key for accessing the URL, as you might guess. But this, hidden in this single line, is a wonderful piece of engineering, because this gets your image asynchronously from the internet. And I can't tell you how useful that is when it comes to making apps. Normally, you'd have to download a library or implement your own solution for doing this. But this does it all automatically for you and loads the image as soon as it's downloaded. So we'll see what that looks like in a second. Width. Let's have our usual parent width. So the image also needs a height. And what height are we going to give this? Model and width times model dot image underscore height divided by model dot image underscore, I'll explain this in a second, width, failing that, 0. So all we're doing here is checking we have a model and we're setting the height. So what this little bit of math is doing is making the height the correct aspect ratio in proportion to the width. So that's all that little bit of shorthand is doing. Right, so where do we want to have this image? Well, again, let's have another anchor as the horizontal center. So in the middle of our page. Horizontally, that is. Parent dot horizontal center. So that's the app image. Then below that, let's have another bit of app text. So we can actually paste what we had before. App text. And what text are we going to have here? Well, this is going to be an interpolated string. It's probably not the correct word for it. %1, we're going to add an argument to this. Bed. %2 for the second argument. Bathrooms. For the next most important bit of information after price. And let's add our arguments for that. So dot arg model dot bedroom underscore number, and add our second argument, model dot bathroom underscore number. That looks all good. Yep. Okay, width, the usual, parent width, wrap mode is correct. And font, we don't need the font in this case. We can actually just remove that and leave it at the default font. Then what else do we need? We need a summary, a description effectively. So the text in this case is model.summary. That tells us about the property. Leave our wrap mode, leave our width. We don't need the font. We're all good. Okay, now what else do we need? Well, let's have below the flickable, I think, no, just there. So this is inside the column and, no, it's outside the column, excuse me, and inside the flickable object. Let's have a scroll indicator. Flickable scroll. Okay, so that's the page, more or less done, but it's not going to load when we click something. That's because inside of our listings list page, we actually need to declare this detail page component because it doesn't know what this is yet. So let's go put a component somewhere, probably at the bottom. Component. This will be ID'd with detail list page. No, detail page, not list, detail page component. You can tell that I'm doing this a bit late at night, aren't you? Can't you? Listing detail page. So now it knows what it's looking for and what to pass in. So we can go ahead, save that. Let's open up that live view and everything should be hunky-dory. London. Enter. Oh, Knightsbridge. Why not? There we have it. 4 beds, 5 baths, a newly refurbished 4-bedroom. Notice that we get an error on is favorite, but that doesn't really matter right now. Oh, and I can't spell property details. Let's listing detail page, property details. So that'll reload that. If I just hit go, what happens? Nothing. Doesn't like it. Let's go to Manchester. Oregon Close. And you'll notice this app text has actually truncated itself. But we can see the flickable working. We can flick that up and down. And that's not a normal behavior because you'll notice at the home page you don't have that if you try to flick it up and down. All right, we just need to do one more thing in this section. And that is to actually fix the current problem Oh, I don't know why it's gone to Liverpool. Anyway, when we scroll to the bottom of our list, this loading icon appears pretty much infinitely. So that's the last thing we're going to do in the next lecture in this module, to load the next list of items inside of our app.